Barb Giamanco helps innovative mid-size and enterprise companies build lead generation programs that improve sales results. To learn more, visit scs-connect.com.
You're listening to Women in Sales, a podcast dedicated to becoming the best resource in the world for female sales professionals. Here's your host, Barb Giamanco.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. It's Barb Giamanco, your host for the Conversations with Women in Sales podcast. Today, our topic is the Customer First Advantage, a great topic, I think, and one that always bears conversation. Before we jump into the heart of the interview, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Our lead sponsor is Microsoft. Corporate Vice President and Channel Chief Gabriella Schuster, along with other female leaders in the company, are driving for change, trying to bring more women into the technology industry. Gabriella and Microsoft are committed to giving young women better role models and a stronger voice to all women. You can hear more from Gabriella and other Microsoft leaders on the Microsoft Partner Network podcast or visit partner.microsoft.com. I'd also like to thank our other lead sponsor, which is SalesLoft, the leading sales engagement platform. Join them this March in Atlanta for 3 days of learning, networking, and inspiration at their annual Rainmaker Conference. With over 100 speakers and 40-track sessions, their annual women's breakfast, and a performance from Grammy-winning band Blues Traveler, this conference is not one to miss. Get your tickets today at rainmaker.salesloft.com. All right. Joining me today is my guest, Sydney Sloan. She is the Chief Marketing Officer of SalesLoft. As the company's first CMO, Sydney leads the company's continued customer-first focus and go-to-market efforts as it continues to scale. She is passionate about SalesLoft's vision for helping sales organizations deliver better selling experiences for their customers. Sydney is a global B2B enterprise marketing leader who has deep expertise across customer experience, product marketing, demand generation, and communications. Outside of work, Sydney can be found cheering for her kids at the soccer field and enjoying time outdoors. So Sydney, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here as well. Now, as we jump right in, you're the first CMO at SalesLoft, and you're currently commuting, are you not? East to west? Tell us about that.
I am. I just actually flew home last night. So I'm based in the Bay Area. I've lived here for the last 7 years. And before that had global roles. So I'm used to commuting. I was commuting from Canada to the Bay Area. Now I moved to the Bay Area and I'm commuting to Atlanta, which has been fantastic, by the way. I've really enjoyed getting to know Atlanta and didn't realize what a big metropolis it was.
Yeah, it is a big city, and you happen to be talking to a self-professed foodie. So if you need some recommendations about some of the best restaurants in town, although you've got a team of people at SalesLoft who can tell you that as well, but I've got some little secrets that some people don't know about. So
I will take you up on that offer.
So keep me in mind. All right, Sydney, we also have a good friend in common. My good friend Tracy Eiler. She's the Chief Marketing Officer at Inside View. She's also the co-author of a book called Align to Achieve: How to Unite Your Sales and Marketing Teams into a Single Force for Growth. So when I was thinking about this interview and the questions that I wanted us to cover, I know your passion is in delivering customer experiences that wow. And that includes how sales drives that experience along with marketing and service. So I kind of wanted to start out by talking about this notion of the sales marketing alignment dilemma and why after all these years, maybe we haven't made as much progress. So what do you think is kind of hindering some organizations from moving beyond talk to action?
Yeah, I think I've seen it live a couple of times, and it's really where, I like to say it's better to be aligned than be right. Because if you and your counterparts are not aligned on the same vision, you're going to be fighting internally, and that's not the greatest use of effort. So a lot of times as I see and advise companies where sales has one idea and marketing has another, that just doesn't work. And if they're working against each other in the companies that they should be targeting, the conversations that they're having, I've come from a background of spending a lot of time in the field. I think that's valuable for two reasons. One is that opportunity to talk to customers directly and really hear what they're thinking and feeling and weaving that back into the story that we're telling. But secondly, to realize that it's really hard to be a salesperson. It is not an easy job. You have to do time management. You have to follow up. You're crafting your own story. You're learning your customers' value propositions. And I think it just gives marketers a real appreciation for how hard it is to be a salesperson.
Well, and I appreciate that as a longtime salesperson myself, Sydney. I would also suggest to those who are listening to our conversation that marketing's job is pretty difficult today as well. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding between the two teams about what each other does. As a matter of fact, when Inside View did their second annual survey around sales and marketing alignment and the challenges and the opportunities, it was interesting to me when I read the research to find that roughly 26% on both sides, both sales and marketing, each said they could each do the other job better.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, exactly. Now in the scheme of things, 26%, it seems low, right? But actually, a quarter of the group on the sales side and the marketing side thinking they can do the job of the other person better is a bit of a problem for me. But it also sort of speaks to what you said, which is sales and marketing often have a different view of how to create that customer experience. And if they're not in alignment, then they're really more focused on their agenda, but not the customers. Would you agree with that?
I worry about that. I hope that we don't agree about that. The more and more that I see companies aligning to an account-based approach, the more alignment I'm seeing in sales and marketing, because they do have to go through the effort to identify what that ideal account is and then how to approach that customer. And now that B2B continues to get more complex, the number of people that are involved, the length of the sales cycles, and really understanding where marketing can help not only in the top of the funnel, but throughout the entire customer journey, and adding more contacts to the account, communicating to those accounts, and really helping the salespeople progress through that sales cycle and ongoing life cycle with the company or that customer is incredibly valuable. So, I think if there are marketers out there or salespeople out there that aren't building that cohesive relationship as a team to better serve their customers, then they have an opportunity to do better.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And again, the research shows that that is improving, and I think like all things, there are opportunities to improve. I also think that what you said about the fact that you have always sort of taken that position that you want to get as close to the customer as you can to really find out what they care about, I think is super important. And I wanted to bring that into the conversation because it can be easy to sit in the boardroom or in the conference room and think we know what buyers want. And in reality, they could be thinking and wanting other things. So I think what you're doing is really great. Now, I've known SalesLoft for a long time. I was telling you before the interview that I've had the pleasure of knowing Kyle Porter, your CEO, since the days when the platform was still in incubator stage and they were just starting out. And I've had the opportunity to watch the company to grow into this really successful organization. And I believe one of the values of your culture is responsible for that, which is all about putting the customer first. Now, a lot of companies think that's about what happens after a sale is closed. But I think you believe a little bit differently, that every step of the way, whether it's the first interaction all the way through, makes a huge difference. Can you talk about that? How do you make sure that the value of customer first always remains at the center of both marketing and sales?
Great. There's there's 3 points I'd love to make on this question. The first is, being a champion of the customer and serving the customer is part of our purpose. So we talk about being in service to others. And we use this notion of sales love, which had me a little bit confused when I first got there. I thought it was, I love my customers. That's not it. It's the act of being committed to the customer, the journey, the solving of their problem. And our goal is to help our customers build meaningful relationships with their customers. And so it's all the way through not only how we serve our customers, but how we encourage our customers to serve their customers. And I think that's really, it's like customer experience or customer insight squared is the way that we think about that. But the second point is that we invest a lot, as you mentioned, in our culture and organizational health. And I was thinking about that. I was coming in. It's like, wow, we talk so much about our employees and how great it is to work at SalesLoft and our commitment to organizational culture. And I wasn't sure we were balanced. It was like, are we balanced enough on the customer? But what I've realized, and with more research that I've done, when you have happy employees that are committed and are appreciated, and we invest in those, they're going to give that goodness back to our customers. So it actually does translate. And some of the most successful organizations focus first on employees and second on customers. So I think that's something to really question yourself about. Are you investing in your employees and your customers? My last point, sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but my last point is really bringing that insight of the customer. I think a lot of companies struggle with this. They might talk about customer journeys, and if only the marketing team is talking about it, it's actually not being adopted. You really need to make sure that there's alignment across all parts of the organization for the way that sales are thinking about it, marketing's thinking about that, customer support is thinking about it, and you're looking for those moments of truth to surprise and delight the customer, and that's how you're going to build that long-term differentiated bond with that customer over the lifetime. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more, and very well said. And frankly, I'd like to call out the fact that SalesLoft does put emphasis on creating a great culture, hiring the right people, being willing to, pass on those that may not fit as well. And I think that's really important. I don't think we hear about this enough, Sydney, but the reality is if your people are happy and engaged and believe in what you're doing, that has to translate into how they treat the people that they're working with and how they treat customers and how they approach prospects and all of that. And as a matter of fact, I just read a second book by Dan Lyons called Lab Rats. And it really zeroes in on this notion that a lot of companies have kind of forgotten that people are at the heart of the success of your organization. So I'm very, very glad you brought that out. Now, I want to talk about you for a minute. I always do my homework on my guests, of course, and always like to know a little bit more about them. And Sydney, one of the things that I've discovered is you've been described as somebody who is very creative, a very intelligent marketer, somebody who cares deeply about people. And I sort of get that intuitively in talking to you, and that you don't hesitate to get in and do the work. In other words, you don't hide behind a title. So why is that so important for you? And how do you think that fits with the overall approach of the customer first mantra and vision at SalesLoft?
Early in my career, I always thought I had to have done every job in order to be able to manage people. And so I would first say that thankfully that myth was dispelled, because if you're really going to stretch and grow and lead, you have to hire people smarter than you are, and empower them to do their jobs and to be able to learn the skill of delegation and trust. That's how you scale. That's how you grow. That's how you become a leader. However, I enjoy marketing. I used to talk about my guilty pleasure going into creative meetings because it stretches your mind. And that's what I love about marketing. It's creative. It's analytical. It's telling great stories. You get to use so many parts of your brain. And so I love going into those meetings where we get to collaborate and ideate, and sometimes it's graphics and sometimes it's the way that we tell our story, but ultimately it's the entire experience that you're building to be able to engage people in a way that's meaningful to them, be it the website or awesome creative that stands out in a crowd, or building, like I just came off a Forrester call where we're building out a framework for value. And so I think about all these things, and I said that used to be my guilty pleasure. Now it's around technology. And so I guess I'm just fascinated. I'm curious. I love all of the advantages that we're getting as marketers in terms of technology and data, and how we're constantly challenged to think new and differently. So if I wasn't doing that, if I didn't have my hands dirty, I wouldn't realize all the advantages that we're getting. And I think I'm just a natural collaborator. I believe in the power of groupthink, and that not one idea is right. It's us coming together to do that. And sometimes then I'll tie that back to the customer, doing that with customers. The thing that I love about working at SalesLoft is I get to be a marketer in a sales world. And I really feel like that's a distinct advantage in my personal career of really getting to understand salespeople at a level that I've never done, because now I'm serving salespeople as our customer. But there's still a lot of value that I can bring to that conversation as a marketer, in the way that we think about data and the partnership between sales and marketing within all our customer accounts. So now I'm getting to learn every single day from every customer I interact with about their approaches, how I can apply it to how SalesLoft goes to market. And so that's just inspiring on an every single day basis.
And do you think, Sydney, that the fact that you're willing to get in there and, and do the work that needs to be done, whether it's, setting up a display booth or whatever it might be, doesn't that also communicate a message to the people who are working on the team that nobody's above it all? Like you don't reach a point where you can't help others just because you have a fancier title.
I hope so. I mean, I think it makes us real as people. I definitely have been intimidated by bosses in the past before. And I don't know why. They're smart, they were open, they were humble. But I think people, and I was just doing an exit interview with she was an intern and it was her first job. And she told me that she was nervous about having a meeting with me. And I can understand that, but it's it's disappointing as well. But people are raised with ideas about authority and how you make yourself real. And what I told her, she asked for advice, like, how do I prepare? And I said, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. And you have to remember that it's just people at the end of the day, and we're all wired the same. We have the same emotions and feelings. And, I might be a little older than other people, and I have a little bit more experience. But the average age at SalesLoft is 27.
Yes.
And so it's kind of, this is the first time that I've been one of the older people on average in a company. And so you have to learn how to rewire yourself to connect to the things that they care about. It keeps me young and hip and cool along with my kids, so I enjoy that. But you do have to rethink about how you relate to people. And maybe one of the ways of doing that is by being in the trenches. And I grew up on a farm, so I'm not afraid of hard work. And I love solving problems together and celebrating together. So at the end of the day, it's really hard because people are going to be intimidated by title, and it's my job to help break that down as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I remember when I first transferred for a management position to Atlanta with Microsoft, and I had this new team, and we were going out, we were doing a road show, a new product coming out. A version of Windows, I think. I don't remember which version at the time. But we were doing these road shows, and team members had to be downstairs, both sales and marketing, and they were setting up and getting everything ready. And I just naturally got up at the crack of dawn with everybody else and went downstairs and helped them. And I was doing it for two reasons, and it sounds very similar to what you were just talking about, Sydney. One, I just felt I wanted to be there and to help them. And it also gave me a great opportunity to get, especially being new to the team, to get an inside look at what was happening for them. What was their day like? Were they experiencing any frustrations? What did they think about these events? Were they really working for them? So there was all that was coming into play. And then, of course, being there when people were getting there early, getting their croissants and coffee and all that kind of thing. And so I just found it to be incredibly bonding. And it was interesting that there were some managers who they just came down when the show was ready to start, and that was it. So not passion judgment. Just for me, I found that I needed to better understand my team members and kind of what a day in the life was like for them, but also sort of demonstrate that I was willing to get into the trenches and help as needed as well. And I think that can be good on both sides. Now,
can I add one more thing there?
Of course,
because it ties back to the opening question of the fact that, and if anybody that's listening that is a commuter. So I am, going every other week back and forth to Atlanta, and so far 6 months in, and I was talking to Kyle about this, I've really worked hard to be a remote leader. And And so I usually do all my meetings, even at 6:00 in the morning, on Zoom. And so I'm on video. I try to be present. I'm constantly, we're working on how to make sure that it feels integrated into the way that SalesLoft works, because we are so headquartered in Atlanta.
Right.
But what I've found is, and it's a key lesson, is that you also have to, and I love this, our coach for our executive team called it the margin. And so if you are a remote employee, how you think about time management to make sure that you're creating the opportunities to have those hallway conversations when you're not there, to have the coffee as you're walking in the door conversation. So it's something that I'm trying to figure out right now in terms of ensuring I'm building that one-on-one time with others, so they get to know me and I get to know them, that I have to over communicate a status of things. If you might have just brushed into someone in the hallway, oh yeah, I'm still working on that. Now I have to proactively think about, I need to send a message to somebody and let them know that I'm working on that.
Right.
So there is that lesson that I'm sharing, hopefully, with folks that are working remote or thinking of working remote, of things that you have to do differently to build those relationships.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, because, while I managed a national sales team, they were not all in Atlanta. And so, it was interesting that sometimes, you would pick up on things and say, well, when did the two of you talk? Oh, well, we were somewhere in the hallway, in the break room, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, don't forget to let the rest of your team know. Oh, you're right. You're right. So there is always that ability to, opportunity to create that camaraderie. So let me ask you, is there anything else about sales and marketing alignment, and certainly the journey that you're on, helping your team with account-based marketing and selling, that you want to share with people? Are there any lessons learned, or do you see, or do you still see some other opportunities that you want to pursue for SalesLoft that you think is going to make you even better at, delivering on that customer first promise?
Oh, it's a never-ending journey, because things continue to change so fast. So what I do love is that SalesLoft is 100% committed to ABM, and marketing is the lead on account selection and the ideal customer profile. And we continue to get more access to data to help us with account selection. But there's so much more we can do about thinking about the segmentation of the accounts and the messaging, and how we're following through and looking at each stage of our customer's journey and the cohorts, and figuring out how to serve them better along those different stages. So there's years and years of work that we have ahead of us to continue to improve and make the customer's experience great. But what I do appreciate is that we sit in the trenches with our sales teams, and we can hear them. We actually sit next to the SDR team, so we can hear what's working, what's not working. We can see inside of our platform what messages are resonating and which are not. And I think just that constant check-in, that ability to jump in and celebrate with the team and then solve problems with the team is always going to be there. And then extending that into the entire customer life cycle. So how we work with our onboarding team and the experience they're delivering their customers, or our customer success organization and our support team. So there's still many more phases that we can look at. One of the first things that I did do was create the customer journey and bring those customer facing reps into the conversation. So we mapped out what we thought the customer journey looked like. We still have to do that validation with our CAB. And we're also working to bring on more advocates so we can have more formal relationships with some of our top customers. So, I think just always keeping the customer at the center and being that voice of the customer. And I like to think of it as, I want marketing to always feel that we are responsible. All of us feel that way, but we are responsible for bringing the customer first in everything that we do. And I hope that every customer, every marketer feels that way, especially in SaaS. You have to work just as hard to keep a customer as you do to acquire them. And are you balancing your resources according to that model?
Well, that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself, because I think sometimes people do take their eye off the ball and they forget that just because somebody signed on doesn't mean they're going to remain with you forever. And that becomes even more important to be thinking about when you are in that SaaS, software as a service environment, where people can kind of come in and come out and, and all that sort of thing, which I think is good. The other thing that I love, and I'm gonna then wrap up with a final question, Sydney. The other thing that I love about what you said is you're reminding everyone listening, and the executives in particular, the journey doesn't end. And I think that sometimes people are like, oh, we'll put, account-based marketing and account-based selling into practice, or as they say at Topo, account-based everything. And, and then we're done. Boom, boom, done. All good. Once we get through that process, I think it's iterative. I think you're going to continue to, even once you really get the process down, as the market changes, as your business changes, as even your customer changes, then you've got to keep sort of adapting and developing that, I would think.
Yep. I'll give one other nugget here, which is try sitting your ops teams together. Rev ops, marketing ops, your ops people from customer success. Put them in the same pod. Or, a lot of people might have governance and oversights or committees, but if they sit next to each other, they will see the differences in the way that those touch points are being managed. And that's actually probably the fastest way to bring all those groups together and to understand the challenges and how customers are being served. You'd be surprised.
That is a great suggestion. I just made a note of that to be sure that I call that out in the follow-up blog post and notes we write to go with the interview. That's a great suggestion. It's sort of that modern day version of walking in somebody else's moccasins, isn't it?
There you go.
Yeah, I love it. All right, last question for you, Sydney, before we wrap up. So without question, SalesLoft has grown pretty exponentially. I mean, you've been named Deloitte's Technology Fast 500 for the second year in a row. You get accolades here in Atlanta for being such a stellar company. So given the growth distinctions and the accolades that the company is earning, and well-deserved, I might add, is there anything special that your sales and marketing team does to kind of make the most of that momentum?
We're doubling in size year on year. And so we have to continue to draw in great talent. And you mentioned it, like we don't lower our bar, and it gets harder and harder to, as we want to grow so fast, make sure that we're maintaining that rigor in our hiring process that makes it worth it. And you feel it when you come into SalesLoft. There is a different level of commitment to self and personal development and service to others, and A-type personality that's willing to stretch. And so that's that unique culture that we have. And we need to look at how we replicate that into different geographies as we continue to grow. For me, I would translate what I just said in terms of why I'm here. As a marketer, I get to work with salespeople solving problems all day long, and it's going to make me a better marketer from this experience. It's going to actually make me a better person because of the opportunity to work at SalesLoft and our commitment to organizational health and culture and the leadership that Kyle and Rob Foreman provide. That's why I'm here. And I'm hoping that that's why other people come and they join my team or they join the sales team, is because of the kinds of leadership, the commitment that we have. I hope as well that we translate that through our customers and can inspire. We're trying to inspire a transformation in the sales profession, and doing that with our customers, through our customers, and through influencers like you that believe there is a transformation happening and there's a greater purpose for us to serve versus just providing technology.
Absolutely. Well, listen, if people want to get to know you, here's the shameless plug I'll put in, because I've gone every single year. You can join Sydney and the SalesLoft team, sales and marketing, and the leadership team at Rainmaker 2019 coming up in March here in Atlanta. So Sydney, as you tell people how they can get connected with you and learn a little bit more, what are you particularly excited about with respect to this year's conference? Anything about the theme or the speakers you want to highlight?
Our theme, we definitely highlight around authenticity and innovation, a different kind of AI. It's just the breadth of speakers that we have. So we're expecting over 1,800 people to attend our conference in Atlanta, which is great. I'm seeing it being named number one on many people's lists as they think about the conferences to attend in 2019. And we really do think about, it's not just about our customers. We want to inspire a lot of people around how to learn more, be more, do more. And so we're balancing the learning across those things. It's not just about learning more about SalesLoft, but learning more about yourself, being more as a person, doing more not only to help yourself, your company, but the community around you. So we're hopefully inspiring folks for that. Now, of course, you're going to be there, which we're super excited, and lots of our friends, like John Barrows and Carolyn Betts from Betts Recruiting. And we have, a lot of our customers that are speaking as well. So folks from Yext and ServiceNow and Everstring partners. So we're really excited to have that. We're bringing in a lot of our analyst friends this year. So you'll be able to have a little bit more market context. And then of course you mentioned Blues Traveler, that was my first, outdoor concert. This was before festivals were cool. Back in the 90s, I saw them. And so we're super excited. We're going to have a great big party as well and have a lot of fun. And that's at the end of the day what it's all about. It's the people you meet, the bonds that you make with folks after the conference and staying in touch and continuing to help each other. The community of sellers globally that we're hoping to inspire to help with this transformation of the profession.
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you for being part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I enjoy being part of it. I enjoy going every year. I enjoyed being part of the women's breakfast, the Lady Lofters breakfast last year and again this year. And I'll be helping to moderate a panel this year on sales mastery. So I'm very excited to be involved. And of course, love the fact that SalesLoft put a stake in the ground here in the Atlanta community and created a major conference for us here because for whatever reason, Atlanta through the years has often been overlooked, and it's a great place to visit, but it's also a great place to come and grow your sales skills through the Rainmaker conference. So I'm super excited. Blues Traveler, get out of here. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, oh my gosh, they are so fantastic because I am a foodie, but I'm also a music buff. So I was really excited to hear about that. And that's going to be a lot of fun. All right. How do they connect with you personally, Sydney? What's the best way? Is it through LinkedIn? How do you want them
I am
to
a LinkedIn
reach out?
person. Yes, please. So I'm Sydney Sloan on LinkedIn. Thankfully, there's only one of me on LinkedIn. And that's where I share my thoughts, blogs, things I'm thinking about. I'm also on Twitter, Sid Sloan. But you'll see most of me on LinkedIn, and happy to connect with folks. I love mentoring. I participate in a lot of women's programs. I also like to bring men into those conversations because I think it's a two-way street in changing the landscape and our commitment to diversity. One thing, Barbara, that we commit to that, and Rainmaker, we really strive to get a balance of diversity, and our goal is to have 50% diverse. So it reflects the world we live in, and so. Just always happy to participate in those kinds of things.
Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you finally about your thoughts related to sales marketing alignment and give us a little more of a view into what's happening at SalesLoft. And clearly, there are lots of great reasons for the success of the organization. I am a big believer that organizational success starts at the top. No question here. That's been the case at SalesLoft. And I have always really been truly a fangirl of the commitment to build an amazing culture. And that's one of the things that I always think about when I think about SalesLoft. So thank you so much for joining me today to talk about those things. I really appreciate it. I'll look forward to meeting you personally in Atlanta at Rainmaker, of course. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Once again, thank our sponsors. Our elite sponsors are Microsoft, as well as SalesLoft. At Microsoft, Corporate Vice President and Channel Chief Gabriella Schuster, along with other female leaders in the company, they're driving for change, and they do a lot to help make sure that we bring more women into tech, but also into sales. And they were one of the first to step up to help make this podcast possible, which I appreciate. SalesLoft is also a sponsor of the podcast, and they are the leading sales engagement platform. Again, join them, join Sydney, join me and the whole team, as well as their customers and you in Atlanta for 3 days of learning, networking, and inspiration at their annual Rainmaker conference. As you've already heard, 100 speakers, 40 tracks, the women's breakfast, fun, food, great music with Blues Traveler. It's a conference you don't want to miss. You can get your tickets today at rainmaker.salesloft.com. All right, there you have it. Another great conversation here on the Women in Sales podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And until next time.
You've been listening to Women in Sales. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.